excited too.
Yes, we are so excited to have you, Marcia. I think you are a great addition to the Cafecito podcast, and we're going to have an amazing conversation about journeys and impact and being an immigrant and being a Latina and everything that is important to United Latinas and to you and me, because we are immigrants and we've fought and battled and had interesting journeys. So let's start there. Tell me a little bit about your journey, what shaped who you are today, how you got here. I mean, I know it, but I think everyone in United Latinas is going to love to hear it.
Yes, thank you. And I still remember those that wine we had in California and then in Boston, talking about our experiences. So as I said, thank you for the invite, Karina. It has been wonderful to meet you, to meet the team at United Latinas, and to be part of this group and this community. So appreciate it. Wholeheartedly. So a little bit about me. I am originally from Chile, and I think that's why we connected too, because South America, sometimes we have a way of saying or doing things that is very unique. So I'm from Chile, came to Cleveland, Ohio about 20 years ago. Actually, a few weeks ago, I celebrated my 20th year anniversary as an immigrant. I came to do my master's degree at Cleveland State University. I'm a journalist by training back in Chile. I was coming for 2 years to do my master's, learn English, and go back to my job, to my life as I knew it at that time. But little did I know that many things were going to happen. But one of the most important ones was that I met my husband at the master's program, and I ended up staying 20 years in Cleveland, Ohio, and building a home, a wonderful family, and my business, which is, what I do, and I'm part of who I am now since 2018. So a lot of my experience in the US, work experience, I should say, was never as a journalist. I never really worked as a journalist, but I started working in a nonprofit, business development, workforce development. I was the manager of business development for a workforce nonprofit that did programs for underrepresented groups, refugees, previously incarcerated individuals with low education, and recent arrivals. And then I transitioned into the higher education. I did research for Latinos and with Latinos. So I've always been interested in working with Latinos in the space of education, workforce development, talent management. And then I transitioned back into nonprofit. I went to work for Esperanza, a nonprofit that does education, higher education for Latinos, supporting them in their higher education journey. And then I went to a law firm to do diversity and inclusion. So I've done a little bit of everything, but all of it really aligned to Latinos and supporting Latinos and empowering Latinos, developing Latinos. And you never realize that when you are back in your countries. But here, being a Latina took like a whole new different, meaning and definition. And I realized that I, had a lot of interest because it was who I am. So I started working with Latinos. I started feeling like I could add something to the Latinos here, but also because it was connecting with my own experiences as a Latina in the workplace. So in 2018, after, 15 years of working in different environments, I decided to go on my own. And I created Amor Consulting. For those of you that always think that it's about Amor Consulting doesn't mean amor. It just means Amschlinger Moreno, which is my husband's last name mixed with my last name. So I'll take the Amor connection as well, because it is the two parts of my family being connected. But Amor really was born out of my own need of having a place where I could support other Latinos like me, that were recent immigrants or Latinos that really were having challenges as they were navigating the workplace in the United States. And also because I wanted to have some of the flexibility and autonomy that being your own boss gives you at a time when my son was very young, and I wanted to be with him, and I wanted to travel with him to Chile to to really raise him as a bicultural, bilingual kid who I'm proud to say now that he is. So those are
Amazing.
that kind of made me who I am, right? My own experience as an immigrant, as a Latina, working in the community, in the Latino community, really all kind of at the core was the creation of a more consulting, really, which is, my other baby, my second baby that I'm very proud of. And it has been 7 years already.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love hearing your transition and your journey. And, you and I talked about what would we call this podcast, and we called it Leading Beyond the Latina Script, which I think it encompasses so much. But I would love to hear what that means for you. Like, what does that title mean? What does that represent? And by the way, I do think of the name of your company as Amore. So I think it's romantic. It's beautiful. I know you, so I can see that story behind the name. So I'm going to stick with that.
Sure.
But I understand where the origin is. But yeah, I would love to hear what that means for you, leading beyond the Latino script.
I didn't know about the Latino cultural scripts when I was coming, to the US as a, recent immigrant. But as I developed myself as a professional, as a leader in the different workplaces, and then as I obviously transitioned with my company, I'm more helping, companies be more inclusive for Latino. I devoted myself to really learn a lot more about the Latino experience in the US, what it means for a Latino professional to live in the US. And also, now thinking back, as I worked in the healthcare for so many years, there was some mention of the Latino cultural scripts in the context of healthcare, which is where the Latino cultural scripts really were first kind of formalized and researched, if you will, as cultural values that really impact and shape who you are, how you make decisions, how you communicate, how you lead, right? And how you see the world. Right. So Latino cultural scripts, for those of you that might be joining us that might not have heard about them, they are elements, they are core values that shape consciously and unconsciously mostly who we are as Latinos. And it doesn't mean that they impact all of us at the same level, right? All of us have a unique experience and a unique identity as a Latino, but in general, they shape who we are. And you might have heard of familismo, colectivismo, respeto, simpatía, loyalty, humility. Those are some of the most, most common and most well-known. And to me, it has been really a journey, and as I'm sure it's for you, Karina, of being aware that those are shaping you for better or worse, right? And they shape you sometimes in ways that you wouldn't want them to shape you.
True.
Like, okay, we don't talk about, our accomplishments because we are taught to be very humble, right? And let our work speak for ourselves. But then we start noticing that everybody else is doing it and that everybody else is having some of those opportunities. So there is a clash, right? There is like, okay, what am I doing wrong? What am I not getting those opportunities? Why is it if I'm doing better work than my colleague, that colleague is getting the opportunities? So that took a while for me, especially because a lot of my work experiences have been in Latino serving and Latino led institutions. So I thought that I was safe. I thought I was with my community, but the reality is that still the systems are bigger than the people inside the systems, right?
Well,
so they were still impacting me.
Yeah, and that's going to lead me to my next question. But I also think one of the sort of myths or misunderstandings that I think that happen in the general population of the United States is that as Latinos and Latinas, we're actually very different. Like, there are similarities and there are, like you said, identities and things in our DNA and things in our behavior that's consistent. But then there's also different things. The influences of being an Argentine versus a Chilean versus a Mexican versus a Dominican versus a Puerto Rican, Colombian. There are subtle differences. And sometimes I feel like in this country, we all kind of get lumped together and say, everyone's like, oh, they're a Latina. But
Yeah.
there are subtle differences. But so that leads me to my next question. At what point did you realize, or did you have, I guess it's more about, did you have the self-confidence to wake up and say, you know what, I can rewrite this script. I can write my own script. Like, I may be a Latina, but I'm also Chilean, but I'm also a journalist, but I'm also a mom, but I'm also all these other things. So what was that? Did you have an aha moment, or was it like a consistent thing that you said, now I can rewrite my script?
No, it was an aha moment, and it came at my burnout in my last job before I started my company. I was having panic attacks on Sunday nights. I was waking up at 3 a.m. telling myself, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to work. I don't want to go to work. I just couldn't quite pinpoint exactly what it was, but it was the fact that I wasn't being myself, that I wasn't living with the values that I felt like were important to me, with for my family, and but most importantly for me. So at that time, I left the company that I was working with. And I have to say, I have come to terms with it too. I left in a very bad way. Like, I just couldn't take it anymore. I waited too long. So I left overnight, not having any of the politically correct things that you have to do in the US. I just left. I couldn't take it anymore. And I went into a deep, how you call it, like self-reflection, self-awareness. I did therapy. I, learned, I interview a lot of people. I did a lot of self-reflection. And I realized that I just wasn't living with the values that were so important to me. And those cultural scripts came to mind. It came to light because they were part of who I am. And just to go back to what you said, yes, there are diversity and complexity within Latinos. There is still some cultural values that are common to all of us. And I felt like, especially as a recent immigrant, some of those values were very strong because I haven't lived in the US for that long, right? So it might be different for someone second or third generation, or someone that was born in Chile but then came, right? I was born and raised in Chile, right? So a lot of those values were so important to me. And I realized I needed to do something. And Amor was that. And Amor has become that place where I can be myself, where I can be here talking to you about what's important to me, and I can be who I am. And I'm proud to have an accent, and I'm proud, to have, I don't know, just all of it. Like, I'm proud of who I am, and I'm continuing getting better into making some of those elements that hinder us, making them more of a strength, right? Looking at it in a different way and using them as, we all hear, superpowers.
Right. I love that. By the way, I grew up with a mother with a very strong accent. I speak like this, but I can also do her accent. And she which she hated, of course. I'm sure your son can do yours, and you
my
probably
gosh,
don't
my
like
son
it.
corrects me every time. He corrects me, and he corrects my husband for the Spanish. So it's like he knows it all.
Absolutely. And but I learned from my mother, and I'm learning from you and a lot of other women. Like, the accent's cool. It's sexy. It's fun.
It.
Be proud of it. Like, you got to this point and own it. Like, I think that's amazing. Like, you should own that, right? And again, that leads me perfectly to my next question. In your opinion, so you went through this journey, right? And you had a big aha moment, and you said, okay, well, I'm going to be really myself, but I'm also going to be authentic to my culture, to who I am, to what my DNA is. And so what do you think those strengths are? Like, after having that aha moment and creating Amor, what do you think led to your strength of saying, okay, I can make this a success, and here are the strengths that I bring as a Latina to the table?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I guess I just want to mention something that you said about the accent, right? Like, I love my accent, but
Yeah.
somehow when you're working for someone else, that might someone else might not appreciate your accent and might criticize it, and or might say, your English is not that good, and they might criticize your writing. So you start having self-doubt,
Right.
right? And that's what I think it happens too. Like, I would be confident, but then if you keep hearing those microaggressions of like, what, it's not that good, or can you say that again, or can you write that again, you start like questioning who you are. And I think that's why to me it was so important to have my own space and like my own company, because I was finally free to say it, and to even say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that, right? Like, it was so liberating to have that. So going back to your question, I think that, everybody says it, and it might sound cheesy or repetitive, but resilience and adaptability are such important values and strengths that we have as individuals, that for me, for my experience, right, as an immigrant, I came here literally with nothing, with,
Yeah.
an opportunity to do a master's degree. I had to create my network. I have to find jobs. I have to get someone that is sponsor my 3 work visas, right? So you have to find, from the silliest things of, finding a home, right? Renting, opening a bank account. You have to figure out, right? You have to be resourceful. You have to not, get sad or, beaten because they said no, right? Even as we're talking about our companies, we are resilient with our companies. And even though we might be having a hard time, they say no, we keep going. And, we keep looking for opportunities to grow our company. So resilience and adaptability are huge, at least for me, have been, something that I'm proud of being like that. Relationship driven leadership, being more relationship based and task based, which tends to be more of the US environment, especially the corporate environment, I think is something we all need to be proud of. we
Yeah.
don't we don't do things as a transaction. We don't
No.
see, with you, Karina, I mean, we talked and we started talking and we never stopped talking. And now we meet once a month and we're planning
Right.
things, in person and for our businesses. And again, that is such a strength, right? We lead
Yeah.
with our hearts and we develop trust as we develop relationships. And I think that is very unique and we have to take advantage of it. So, those two. And lastly, I guess, is our multicultural perspectives, right? We
Yes.
all have, right, some of us might be more direct with our, home countries, but we all have either two languages or two perspectives, or, we know how the world works beyond the US. And I
Yes.
think, especially in a time when we continue living in a bubble, or, we prioritize living in a bubble, I think having that multicultural perspective really, really helps us stand out, and be successful in so many other areas that perhaps people that don't have that perspective cannot.
Yeah, I would add to all that because I agree 100% with everything you said. I would also add creativity.
Yes.
I think we as a Latino culture, um, we tend to always be thinking creatively and out of the box. How can we get there? How can we do this? Some of it maybe not so great in our countries, but there's still a lot of creativity. And because I think it goes hand in hand, in my opinion, with resilience, right?
Yes.
Because when you come from countries that we all come from, the volatility is there every day. The
Yes.
uncertainty is there every day, right? Like, what's the value of our currency going to be from 1 hour to the next? What's the government going to do from 1 hour to the next? What's our company going to do from 1 hour to the next? And I think that has become innate. And part of our DNA is to be creative, to be resilient, but to think out of the box and say, okay, what else can I do? What's my solution? I'm not going to sit
Yes.
and say, okay, the solution has to fit this box. And if it doesn't fit this box, I'm going to get stuck. And I think that's a huge quality in our culture. And I think it comes up in our personal and it comes up in our professional all the time. And I think that gives us one of our major superpowers, because we have that view of saying, okay, you said no. Okay, what else can I do? You didn't
Yes.
like this? Here's what I'm going to do. You know, and I do think it takes a lot of self confidence, but I think part of it is when you grow up in our countries or you come from our countries, you don't have a choice sometimes. Like
And
we,
unfortunately, for better or worse, we're poorer too. We have less resources, less money. So, that's why our parents, have to deal and have to make believe with what they had. They had to provide us, with that mindset. Okay, it's not going to work this way. We might not have the money for this. We're going to try it this way. We're going to try it this way. And I think we have made it a strength. When if you think about it, it might speak about some of our, historical challenges that we have had as a region. But we had made it, we had transformed it into a strength. I totally agree with you.
so if you were to give some advice to people that are either recent immigrants going through what you went through, the journey, or Latina women trying to move up in their career and it's facing some of the same barriers that you faced, and some of I think it's super thank you for being incredibly vulnerable and honest about some of those challenges you faced and having that aha moment. I think everybody listening to this really values and appreciates that. But if there's other women, Latina women out there going through some of those, what would be some of the advice or some of the strategies, Marcia, that you used to kind of reach where you are today?
I think it's like you said, in a way, being vulnerable and also open to self-awareness and self-reflection. I think that especially when we just come, we're so overwhelmed. We're trying to do so many things that we don't really take time to learn about who we're becoming, right? Because we're different. We're different than when I'm different from when I came in 2005, right?
Right.
And I finally took the time forcibly, because my mental health was at play in 2018, to start thinking about who I am and what are my strengths and what are my values. So I think I would say, take some time to better know yourself, right? Understanding that you're also going to change in the journey, right? Like my favorite quote is "Se hace camino al andar," right? Antonio Machado, because you really don't know what it's happening in the future, but you are walking this journey, right? And at least you need to have the self-awareness to say, this is who I am and this is where I want to go. And I think that's very important. More in the practical, there is like a background noise, and I'm not sure what it is, Karina, if you hear it.
Um, I heard it a little bit, but I'm not hearing it now. But
Okay, that's
I
fine. It might be, I don't know if it's in my end. I don't hear it now. Sorry.
no,
I'm
that's okay.
more for the practical piece, which I always try to be very practical, is have your kind of village. Look for your board of advisors, as they call it here, so sophisticated. Just find your village, find people, mentors, sponsors, friends, colleagues that can really support you, can see your potential, see your value, be there when you need to make a decision. I wish I would have had that more formally before I did, because I think I could have run decisions by them, have them as a sounding board, so you feel like you have someone on your corner that understands who you are. And by the way, they don't only have to be Latinos, right? They can be
Right, right.
all types, all walks of life. So that way you have different perspectives.
Right. And that's so interesting that you say that, because I was about to ask you the question of how allies, organizations, and institutions can better support Latino visibility and leadership. And I think you summed it up. It's like, you know, I think United Latinas is a great organization, not to,
Yeah,
like, I think that's sort of an opportunity. That's how you and I met, right?
find your
I think,
community, find your
yes.
people, and also find others that might not be your people in the sense of, the affinity, but that can bring something to your perspective that you can also obviously give something back to them.
Right.
Right. I think it's United Latinas, any other group, locally, nationally, that has an affinity, for me, has been really important, especially because I am in a region that we don't have a lot of Latinos. So I like
Right.
to be with groups that can, get my glass full, right? So I can pour everything here when I come back, and then I get it full when I'm talking to you, when I'm talking to, different people at the national level. So I think it's key to have those relationships. And we go back to the relationships, right? You have to also develop those relationships, right? You cannot expect to have mentors or colleagues and only reach out to them when you need something, right? You really need to always be developing those relationships.
I couldn't agree more. And I also think, I think something that you've done brilliantly is what you said before. It doesn't just have to be Latinos and Latinas. Just be proud of your leadership. Be proud of your work. Be proud of your. I think that's where it comes, leading beyond the Latino script, right? Owning who you are anywhere that you are, and saying, I have a power, I have a strength, I have a resilience, I have the creativity, I have the determination, and it doesn't have to be I'm a Latina leader. I am just a great leader. And that's also
Right.
important, is to step into your power as you and be your authentic self. And I love that, because that's also important for us to remember, right? We can't make ourselves small because they're going to make us small. And so we need to say, okay, we're going to lead beyond that script, because the script we're creating, you're not going to create the script for me.
Correct. And if
And I
you
know
think
it's hard
about
to
it,
do.
others might just will see it as a strength. I mean, you have to make it a strength, right? But then you go to the tables. I'm thinking, in some of the boards that I sit, like, I bring such a different perspective, such a unique perspective, because again, right, unfortunately, we're still not at the levels of representation we need to be. So it's even more important that we understand and are aware of those scripts, but we use them beyond what they mean for us. We use them to improve, what we bring to the table, right? To bring up more things that are important in the spaces that we're at. So I think that for me is also going beyond the script. It's almost like using your script to bring those topics to the table, because they are important, and most times that not are not being included, right? In my case, I
Right.
advocate for Latinos, and that's why I bring my leadership and what I know to those tables where Latinos are not yet represented. And I use it because I know what my power is now, right? It took a while, it took a few years, but
Yeah,
but
no.
we all have it inside us.
And it takes a while. And there's no specific
Recipe.
timeline. It could take years, it could take a shorter amount. There's no specific timeline on when you really step into your power and own your power and own your script and what you want to do with that script. And I think you also said it beautifully. You're not today who you were when you arrived at
Correct.
all. And there's an evolution, and we have to be, I think a big quality of being a female Latina is the pressure we put on ourselves to be successful right away, to do
Mhm.
everything perfectly right away, to reach all those goals right away. And I think having some patience and kindness for ourselves,
Yeah.
and saying it's okay to be not the very best right away. It's okay to grow into who you are. It's okay to change the script, to lead beyond that script, to ebb and flow from that script. That's okay. That doesn't mean you're failing. That just means you're
Yeah.
moving forward.
And the longer you're in the US too, those scripts sometimes they also become very blurry, right? Because again, you're having such a big influence of others, and that's okay too, right? So again, I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago, because I've had 20 years of being with my husband, who is an American, right? And we are, an entity now, and we impact each other and we shape each other. So I think that's also, it doesn't make me less Latina, or it doesn't make me less of a leader. It's just I evolve and I change and I continue being proud of who I am, but every day is going to be something new. And for my son, it's the same, right? So this is a constant, se hace camino al andar, as I say.
Yeah, I could talk to you for hours, but
I
we which we do. Fortunately, I get the opportunity to talk to you for hours once a month, so that's exciting for me. So, couple of last things before I make this podcast longer than it needs to be, and Ileana comes to me. So, Marcia, if people want to find you, if they want to connect with you, if they want to have a conversation, where can they find you? What's the best place?
Yeah, so here I'm not that good with the camera, but I'm more that US. That's my website. I am super active on LinkedIn, Marcia Moreno. I'm happy to connect with people via LinkedIn. I also have a link in the LinkedIn for a call, like a discovery or a meet and greet or a cafecito with Marcia. So happy to connect with everyone at the personal level, at more of the professional level via a more, if any organization is looking for ways to get better, to be more inclusive for Latino talent. I'm your person, and I'll be happy to connect with anybody.
That's amazing. And I was going to say, you keep throwing your phrase. I'm going to throw my typical Argentine phrase, which is no hay mal que por bien no venga, which is my favorite thing, which for those of you that don't understand, it's essentially out of every bad thing, a good thing comes. So It's kind of like when, one window closes, another window opens, or another door opens. And, we have to rewrite the script how we want to write it and lead with our authentic selves, which, Marcia, you do every day. And I thank you so, so much for being on this podcast with me. This was amazing. And for those of you listening and watching, thank you so much. And if you want additional information or join us at United Latinas, please become a part of us. We're fast growing and we do make a huge impact, and we're proud of that. So Marcia, thank you again for joining us. I really, really appreciate it.
Gracias, Karina. Thank you,
Gracias.
everyone.
Thank you.